And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you wanted more. So you came back. Well, guess what? We have a lot more for you. We have an awesome guest today. I'm already vibing with this lady who's on here today. She's got so much energy. She showed up just like boom, right on the scene. You guys are going to love this. Absolutely love her story. You're going to love her stuff. This is the place, folks, where the podcasters that come on here are all about supporting each other. This is the podcast that is for podcasters. It's about podcasters. It's by podcasters. This really and truly is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So let's get sailing. Introduce our new guest. Please welcome author, podcaster, screenwriter, clergy, master of divinity, masters of divinity, producer, screenwriter. I mean, really, I need to take a drink before I even finish her intro. Um, the creator of a YouTube animated series called Murder of Two, host of the podcast Byte Sized Blessings, and probably 50 more things because we haven't even gotten there yet. Please welcome Kirsten Rudberg. Kirsten, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this because I've been listening to your podcast and I'm loving the conversations you're having with your guests.
Thank you for
So
that. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's the best compliment I can ever get is that, and at the end when people go, "Man, that was fun," it's like good. Then we accomplished
Oh,
something here.
good.
Yeah, so that's
Good.
perfect. That's perfect.
Hooray.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kirsten, I couldn't possibly tell everybody about you because I tripped over myself about 9 times walking in the front door. So please tell everybody, who is Kirsten Rudberg? What are you about? What brings you here today?
Yes. Well, gosh, that's a great question. So I'm going to give you an apocryphal story. I grew up overseas, Guyana, Pakistan, traveled all over the world till I was about 11 years old because of my father's job. So saw a lot of the world, experienced a lot of the world, the architecture, the art, the cooking, the food, all of it. And as they say, that changed everything for me. I'm a massive bibliophile, so I love books. I love folk tales, fairy tales, the stories that cultures create, even in the religions, right? The Bible, the Quran, they're filled with stories. So I'm an avid lover of other cultures' stories. But the apocryphal one, I mean, we're always trying to figure out who we are. And, it wasn't until probably in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years that I looked back at this, what happened to me in junior high and how it changed everything for me. So I hid in the library in junior high. I'm not going to lie about it. Love the library. They had this contest where you could read a book, take a 10-question test, and if you passed, you got a point. And when I was in seventh grade, I'm like, I'm going to win this contest. Everybody get out of my way. So I did. I basically lived in the library, made the front page of the paper, sitting on a stack of 96 books, because that's how many I'd read that year. Um, yeah. So in eighth grade, I was like, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to outshine myself. So I'm going through, I'm on my way. And eventually in eighth grade, I did read 120 books. They actually ran out of books for me to test on. So I had to start writing the questions for future books for future students. But about three-quarters of the way in, I get called out of chemistry class. And my teacher, Mr. Cox, was a little bit of a grump. So when I got called to the guidance counselor's office, he was not happy. I remember that. But I was also glad because we were playing with Bunsen burners and those scared the living shit out of me. Can I say that? They scared me so much. I was like, fire, things are going to explode. So when the guidance counselor called and they were like, hey, come to the guidance counselor's office. I was like, okay, great. So I walk down and I walk in, and there are my parents, who, by the way, hated each other with a passion. Their divorce had been finalized only a couple years earlier, and it was very acrimonious. It was really, really ugly. So just seeing them both in the room was, I don't know, so shocking to me that I just didn't know what to think. And then basically we had a meeting where the guidance counselor said, your daughter is not developing socially. She's spending all of her time in the library reading books because for lunch, I'd go down, wolf my lunch down, not even chew it, and then run to the library and spend the rest of lunch in the library. I never went to recess. I mean, I was hiding. I admit that I was hiding, but I also loved the library. Um, so she said, I'm just letting you know she's not developing socially. We're all concerned about her. She's, you know, locked herself in the library. And the upshot was my parents listened, they agreed, and I got banned from the library. I was not allowed to go into the library anymore. I could go into like maybe check out a book. But after
Wow.
that, it was like, no, you're not allowed. You're not, you have to go to recess. So I remember that first day, it was winter in Illinois. Recess was not outside because if it was outside, I would have gone and hidden behind a tree, but it was inside in the gym. So I walked in and everybody was playing. I had no social skills. I mean, you could believe the guidance counselor's hype. I did not know how to talk to people. I was so scared. And I wandered around. No one, again, would talk to me. And I looked over, and there were these three gorgeous African American girls over to the side. And they like beckoned me over. And those were kind of my first people, my friends. We just started laughing and having fun. And I tell everyone, this is the moral of the story. And it kind of illuminated the direction I'd be going. When I graduated from 8th grade, I got nominated as class bookworm, which no surprise there, right? Then 4 years later, it's high school. I graduate and I get nominated class clown. So if that doesn't say everything about how I changed, how I morphed and figured out a way to survive and found and discovered this latent talent in me to be funny and that people appreciated it, I don't know what else to tell you. And I didn't know I was funny. And so I include all of that, in my podcast interviews, in my animated series, even though there might be strong points in the things that I create, a lot of it's done with a sense of humor. So not so serious.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's literally the history of your sense of humor.
Yes.
I mean, holy cow. Okay. I mean, that's definitely on display in small doses in your podcast and in your animated series for sure. The it has down here that you were an author, and I absolutely did not do my research on this. What did you write?
Well, okay. So I am rewriting the Peter Rabbit book series. And the first three are out. It's going to be a 13 to 14 book series. I have the first 7 or 8 written. I have the first 6 illustrated, all female illustrators. But again, like you noted before we started the interview, you know, you're going along on my animated series, and I pack a big punch in those 3 minutes. Although it might be funny, there is something that kind of arrests you and makes you think. So I'm rewriting the Peter Rabbit book series. First book is A Tale of Two Rabbits. It's a rewrite of Peter Rabbit. Second is The Nuts Guts, which is a rewrite of Squirrel Nutkin.
Okay.
And the third book is Boom Chicka Meow Meow. And it's a rewrite of The Tailor of Gloucester. And it's about a cat that runs a sweatshop. So each book, it's going to end up being more of a sci-fi fantasy series, but really it's a reflection on why do humans keep making the same mistakes? Why do we keep, injuring other humans, injuring the environment, damaging the things that we need that are precious to us? Because frankly, I'm sick of the environmental degradation that's going, how we keep doing the same things that don't serve us, that aren't going to help us in the long run. And I've got 3 books, 7, I think it is, 8, I can't remember. Anyway, so there's a circle inside that always just to reference back to why do we keep making the same mistakes? But it's really just they're confrontational. I mean, there's a skinned rabbit on the cover of the first book, and it's meant to let the listeners know, hey, they're really small, they're really beautiful. I've had people say how beautiful they are, but they deal with things that I'm not happy with, I guess.
Hmm. Okay. What made you pick Peter Rabbit? I'm curious. Was there something about that story, or was it just a good vehicle to get your ideas out?
Well, I do have to say that Beatrix Potter is a favorite of mine, and her books were already very subversive for her time. She was really low key, kind of wanting people to see animals, wanting people to see the land around her as beautiful, worth saving, precious, you know, gorgeous. And so she was already a little low key subversive. I'm just going maybe two or three levels above that and being like, hey, nobody's listening to Beatrix Potter with her really sweet, charming, but subversive stories. I guess you guys need to have it shoved in your face. So that's what I'm going to do with a little bit of humor.
Okay. Got it. Got it. And it's funny because this seems to be your style overall. I catch some of that in your podcast, but for sure in your animated series, I check that out. And at first I'm like, all right, it's only a few minutes. We're going to check this out. We'll see. And I was watching it casually, and then I kind of got hit in the side of the head a couple times and went, wait a minute. I need to pay closer attention to this. What did he just say? And so I backed it up and I rewatched it again. And you pack a punch.
Yeah, the first episode, I was so distraught and upset what happened with George Floyd. And I have had, obviously, since growing up overseas, I just adore, love, respect people from all over the world. I don't care what your religion is, your skin color, whatever. And George Floyd's death just enraged me so much. And the way I was able to channel that rage was by writing that first episode. And, I sent it to a few of my African American friends because I didn't want it to be performative. I didn't want it to be insulting. And one of them was like, oh my God, I'm sharing this with everyone I know. Like, everyone needs to watch this because it's brilliant. And I just, I think a lot of people are walking through their lives and they're asleep, right? Or that's the word we'll use. It's easier not to engage. It's easier not to think about the heavy things happening in our world. But I want people to at least take some time in their lives to critically examine how they're participating in maybe continuing racism, how they're participating maybe unconsciously in things that damage the environment, because, we have one shot at this and it seems like no one's listening, at least to me. Some people are listening. I'm not totally fatalistic.
That's good. That's good. Okay, now as you look back at your past, this worldview that you have and this mission that you're on, it sounds like that certainly was influenced by you travel in the world and things like that. I'm curious how you deciding to go to seminary fits into all of this. I mean, did you learn something there that you were against? Did you learn something there that propelled you forward? How did that influence you with these other things happening?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, so again, grew up overseas, loved the cultures, loved the architecture, the art, everything. And that kind of, I'm already a bibliophile, so started collecting folk tales and fairy tales from all over the world. And I am fascinated by humans, how humans create meaning. So how do we move through our lives and create meaning based on the experiences that we have, the encounters that we have? And that's pretty much what my podcast, Byte Sized Blessings, is about. People having these experiences that they can't explain, that might be supra normal. And they're like, oh my God, how do I even include this in my worldview? But to be honest, the Masters of Divinity, I started dating a gentleman who was Catholic, and his wall of books was so enchanting to me. See, there I am, books again. I'm like, I don't care if I'm dating you. I don't care. Go away and let me read. So I started reading the books in his shelf, and there was so much on Catholic mysticism and the story of the Catholic Church and the rule of Benedict. And it was all so interesting to me. But then I was driving one day in Chicago while I was visiting my parents, and it was NPR, and there was a show, and they were interviewing, this sounds like the start of a bad joke, but a rabbi, a Catholic priest, and an Anglican pastor. And they were talking about some issue that was critical at that time. And I just had this wave of envy come over me. I was just like, oh my God. And then I took a step back and I was like, oh, you want to be part of these conversations. What does that look like? Now, I am not religious, okay? I don't have a religion. I'm a panentheist. So you could say that I might advocate panpsychism, which indicates or suggests that everything is conscious, that the entire world is sacred, everything is sacred, it all has a purpose, and that we can connect with all of it if we're just patient enough to listen. And so, I was dating him. I was reading these books. I had this experience with NPR, and I thought, oh my God, I think I might be going to seminary or getting a master's. And it felt so right. It just felt so right. The second I thought, maybe I'm going to do this, it was like my heart was happy. I was excited. I started researching seminaries for about a year because I wanted to go to a liberal one where we could have deep and dark conversations, where everything was on the table. And then for about 2 or 3 months, you have to know this is how I operate most of my life. At my work, everyone who came in, every single person, everyone was from Denver. And one of the seminaries I was looking at was in Denver. So I thought to myself, okay, I already know I'm getting in because everyone's from Denver. And so I'm not going to apply anywhere else. This is before I applied, by the way. So I applied and I got in, but I was like, I already know. I know I'm getting in. The universe told me so. And the universe told me Denver was the place that I had to go. So I went and, oh my gosh, I was one of the very, very few in my cohort that didn't have a religion. There were two other people who were UUs, Unitarian Universalists, but mostly it was a really ragtag group of every kind of Christian religion. There was an evangelical there. It's a really inclusive seminary. Mormons, Methodists. I mean, everyone you can imagine goes to this seminary, and it's really fascinating to be in those rooms and having those conversations with people from all different religious backgrounds. So ultimately, I went because I did strongly feel that I was always meant to get a master's of divinity, and it was just part of the path of my life, so that when I went forward into the world, I could, you know, bring that knowledge, that learning to bear in whatever I created. Interestingly enough, in seminary, I was adrift for a long time. And I think this might be fascinating to you. So they gave me my first quarter, an 800 question test to figure out my personality and where I'd fit best. So I do that. I meet with a gentleman who has been a psychologist for, I don't know, 35 years, and also a Lutheran pastor. And he's like, okay, so you're an artist. And I was like, what? That is not true. It was like such a dirty word in my house. And then he said, second is science and technology. And I was like, well, that tracks because I read science magazines since I was a kid. So totes. And then he said, but here's the thing that I've never seen in my entire life doing what I do. And he's like, the entire time the computer is tabulating all your answers, there's this like quadrant where apparently this little black dot goes around the quadrant while it's tabulating the 800 answers. And it goes, it's like each quadrant means something for personality and how you are in the world. And he's like, I have never had this response, but it settled right in the center, in the middle of the bullseye. And he said, you either have no idea who you are, you can be whoever you want at any given moment. And I was like, geez, okay, I don't even know what to think about that. And so, I'm still unpacking that. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I guess it means I can be a chameleon or be flexible. So that's how I'm taking it.
Maybe it just means the universe has left every single door open for you and you get to pick which one you get to go through.
That would be nice. Like Price is Right, right? Which door should you pick?
There you go. Price is right. I like that. All right. You're pulling up some of the old stuff. Wow. Um,
Yes.
okay. So again, seminary was a little surprising to me when I saw that because I kind of got an idea of your worldview. You are very, from what I've read and from what I've seen on your bio, you are very strong in your belief of energy in the universe and that there are um, signs from the universe, that type of thing. Now, in my,
Yeah.
brain, I'm trying to like, does that fit with seminary? And maybe it does. I've never been to seminary. So did that come from that in some capacity or a derivative of that? Or is this, belief in the power of the universe from some other part of your upbringing?
Well, that's a really complicated question. And the answer is complicated. I was actually reflecting on that this morning. Did you ever see the movie Signs with Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson,
Mm,
directed by M. Night Shyamalan? Did you ever see that movie? Well, there's a
yeah, and it's
scene
not ringing a
in the
bell. No.
movie where Joaquin and Mel are sitting. Yeah, so they're sitting on the couch. Mel and Joaquin are sitting on the couch together. And Mel is a pastor. And Joaquin's his younger brother who played AAA baseball or something. And Mel says to him, so you have a choice in this universe, in this creation. Either everything is chaotic and nothing means anything, or pretty much everything's a sign. And that really resonated with me because for me, walking through this creation, walking through my life, I'm either co-creating uh, with the energies that are all around me because more and more in quantum physics, also in consciousness studies, there are quite a few people that believe that consciousness is a quantum process. There are interesting experiments being done with these things in our brains, in our cells called microtubules. They have mostly proved that photosynthesis in a plant is a quantum process. So why wouldn't humans be using quantum processes, especially for consciousness? And, I think I know there are a lot of scientists that say consciousness is non-local. And so what that means is that it's not localized in our bodies. It is everywhere around us. It's outside of us. It's inside and outside of us. And the way I imagine that is a fish, swimming through the water. The fish doesn't know that it's in water. It's just its reality. We look at a fish and we're like, oh my God, from our perspective, you're in water. So for us, and there's also the Higgs field, but that's like a whole other conversation. We're walking through consciousness because it's non-local all the time. So it's without and within. And so if that is the case, and it's a quantum process, and plants use quantum for photosynthesis, it literally makes no sense to say that we're separate from plants because there is this intrinsic energy that is all around us. The only thing that's keeping us from connecting is our own selves with this idea, Descartes, materialism, Western, like we are separate and everything is separate from us. And so for me, I'm very playful and it's more fun for me to believe that I'm walking through consciousness, that interactions with plants or rocks or whatever, the clouds that are up there right now, I can converse with them. I can have a conversation. And, I like to imagine that everything is in it for me to win it, which is such a cheesy saying and I hate it. But it's more fun to imagine that I'm in a universe that is alive and aware and wants all of us, to bring gifts to the world, to achieve our best selves, to be kind to one another. And it's just, the world is waiting for us to catch up, is my perspective. And so, as far as seminary goes, yes, it was a Methodist seminary. Yes, it was Christian based. But, I wrote a lot of my papers were mostly, I would have to say, not Christian based and very, expansive. And I was allowed to bring in all those points of view, even from the pagan times, because I did research back into pagan times for, I had a great class called, I think it was the human body and sexuality in the Hebrew Bible. And so we talked a lot about gods and goddesses and how goddess bodies were portrayed in ancient sculptures that have been discovered. And my paper was based on ancient songs that were given to Asherah and Baal, and how a lot of those songs, the verbiage is the same in Song of Songs, which is in the Bible. And so I was really allowed to have, it wasn't just Christian. I was allowed to explore a lot of avenues and bring in a lot of stuff that was interesting and informed. Did I even answer your question?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure what answer I was looking for. I really just kind of enjoy asking questions when I don't have an answer for them. and just seeing what we get. So it's just finding out more about you. I love the fact that you're so much of your worldview is based on where you want it to be. It's based on how you desire it to be. It's not a result of something else where, well, I had this rough childhood, so I ended up hating everything. It's, you know what? I really like the idea that there's joy, that there's happiness, that this is more fun. You're just taking a much more active role in choosing your worldview, which I think is refreshing and kind of neat. So, yeah, I think you answered my question really, really well.
Well, I mean, okay, good. And I mean, I don't want to, I'm 54 years old. I know I don't look at, stop with the compliments.
You really don't. Are you
But
kidding me right now?
I
Are
do
you
want to
really
just
54?
say, yes, no, I am 54, yes. So it is, to be honest, it has been years of therapy. And, not only years of therapy in a really good way, because when you go to seminary, I'm also a licensed spiritual director. So in theory, I could counsel people as far as where the numinous or spirit shows up in their life and how they can open themselves to conversations about how to maybe choose a vocation or a path that works with their calling or what they feel their soul is telling them to do or encouraging them to do, I guess, or asking them to do, because I believe it's always an invitation. But no, there were decades where, I mean, because my childhood was not an easy one. It was not an easy one. And just yesterday, I was talking with someone, and I did not have a childhood. Um, I was the oldest of three. My mother had mental illness. And after the divorce, my house was a hellish landscape. And it's not her fault. There's a lot that goes into this, but as a result of being the oldest, I was the one that had to kind of raise and be present for my younger brother and sister who were also tormented. I mean, my brother had to go into therapy as a child. My sister, it was intense. And a friend said to me, you weren't allowed to have a childhood then. I said, I know. And she said, you're having it now. And I said, I know. And, it's because I think am grateful I was kicked out of the library because it allowed me to begin that journey to meet my silly, playful side, the side that loved to laugh. It has been years of therapy and deep, deep grieving for my childhood. Lots of years. I was just reflecting this morning, my God, how I lost like my 20s in such a dark place. And I mean, just not knowing what I was doing. My 30s was part of it. I mean, having jobs where I wanted to be a waitress or a barista in a coffee shop because I didn't want a corporate job. I have told people that I've been working since I was born because I was effectively raising my brother and sister. I was so exhausted by my early 20s that it took me about 2 decades to recover from that psychic and emotional and physical exhaustion of just needing to be hyper vigilant all the time and also caring for other people's moods and making sure everyone was safe. I needed those decades so that I could recover and heal. And now, after I've done all this work and all of this heavy lifting and acknowledging the strong child that I was able to be resilient and recover from that. Now I get to rejoice and have fun and be silly and have my childhood. And not everybody gets that, but I've designed my life so that there's a lot of spaciousness. There's a lot of freedom. I don't work for corporate America. I don't make a lot of money, but what is more valuable to me is having freedom and not having stress and being able to laugh and meet friends whenever I want and connect and build community. So, people look at me because my brother and sister are both married with kids. And I'm like, I don't want that. I mean, I kind of sort of already did the raising kids already. I want to just have fun. I want to enjoy my life. I don't care if I don't have a lot of money. I want freedom. But that means, for some people, adjusting expectations. And I love books. So nothing makes me happier than finding a book and sitting in a corner and reading or going outside and and, noticing the pink red racer snake that lives at the ranch where I'm at and saying good morning or whatever. It's just, I didn't even have to adjust my expectations. It's just like, this is what I want. And so I'm going to create it. If that makes any sense.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And very well said, by the way. And sorry if I hit a nerve there a little bit.
Oh no. Oh my God. There's no nerves. There's
Okay.
no nerves. It's just, sometimes in our culture that really, advocates wealth and advocates notoriety and advocates, maybe behaving in a way that is not filled with integrity or authenticity so that you can be approved of or liked by random strangers. To me, that is such an empty and exhausting way to live. And God bless these young people that can do it. I'm like, go for it. I have really big doubts about the people who are in their 20s and 30s to tell people that they're sages and they have so much wisdom and they've like unlocked the secrets of the universe. And I'm like, hey, look, I mean, do you have any life experience? Because it's really when you're older, in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, that's when the knowledge comes because you can synthesize and maybe take things. And I really do have to say that I think it's when you're in your late 40s or 50s or 60s that the real wisdom comes and you can synthesize your experiences, the encounters you've had, maybe, your encounters with that we cannot name. And that's when the real gifts can be given back. I always think about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell. Just by virtue of being born, the first thing in the hero's journey is you get the invitation to adventure. So the fact that our souls have come to this planet, that's our invitation to adventure. And then throughout the whole journey, you encounter monsters, which you could say my parents' divorce was a monster. You could say me raising my brother and sister was a monster. But then you also encounter helpmates and allies who want to help you. And you could say the guidance counselor who kicked me out of the library was an ally, even though I didn't recognize it till later. Or those wonderful girls who welcomed me in the gym were allies. So you have these people that help you along your path. And then you finish your path. And always at the end of every hero's journey is the final act is bringing your story back and sharing it with the community or the treasure that you win. Because in every story, there's treasure or some boon that people have won or found or discovered. They bring it back and share it with the community. That is what is supposed to happen so that other people can learn, so the money can be saved or shared, so that the treasure goes to everybody. And, I try to live my life like that. So whenever I learn something new, I want to share it with people. But I also want other people to feel like they can share their journeys and the treasure that they've found. And that's kind of what my podcast is about. I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon and say 20 and 30 somethings have nothing to say. They certainly do. But I just don't I think that real wisdom and real understanding of what we're all co-creating comes in your later decades. That's all.
Could not agree with you more. And I love the way you phrased it. I also like that you brought up your podcast because that was kind of the next thing I was going to ask you was we found out a lot about you and I love the fact that you've been sharing that. Thank you so much for being so open and honest and just everything with it. But from there, you go into the podcast and what is you mentioned a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish, but deep down, it's like when you start the podcast and as you go and do it all the time, what is your actual purpose behind doing each episode of the podcast?
Yeah, that's so funny. Someone said to me, "Are you making money yet?" And I'm like, "No, that is not the point of the podcast." I mean, I pay a lot of money every month to support the podcast and get it out. And it's, I'm sure you've heard of tithing in churches. Sometimes when you join a religious institution, you have to give 10% of your income. So I don't really have a massive income to like tithe. So my idea is that my podcast and the money I lay out every month is my tithe to the universe. It's my commitment to spirit, to energy, to whatever is, to consciousness. If you want to say that consciousness is alive, which I think it is, it's my tithe saying, here I am showing up. This is what I'm contributing, because the podcast started in the midst of COVID. I graduated from seminary. There were no jobs. All of the religious leaders I knew were freaking out and trying to figure out how to pivot to online services. And I was left with, there were no jobs. So within a month or two, I thought, okay, everybody is depressed, lonely, anxious, sad, and scared about the world. I have always been someone, people my entire life have come to me and said, hey, this weird thing happened to me. Can you please tell me? How do you explain it? What is going on? I don't understand. And I thought, I love those stories. I love those stories because some of them are so strange and inexplicable. And I thought, I bet other people would love these stories too. So I did a test and I asked 10 people in my cohort at seminary, would you be on my podcast and tell me a story that changed your life, or maybe something miraculous, magical, or mysterious happened and it shifted your reality? And they all said, yes, absolutely. And from there, it's evolved, and I'm on episode 247 now. It's evolved to the production's better. I've learned a lot. You're never going to jump out of the gate being perfect. I was not perfect, but still those stories are there and they're saved for posterity. And it's everything from someone who died 3 times and came back and what they saw on the other side, to best friendships that modeled for the person who they were so they could understand how amazing they are, to I just had Gretchen Menn this week, who's a lead guitarist for Zepparella, a Zeppelin tribute band. Her first story she called, quote unquote, mundane. And it was about when she was 16, a padlock moved on its own across her dresser and then launched itself across the room. And I was like, you and I have different ideas of what mundane means. I'm sorry, but that's just the fact. And so it's been a really interesting journey, just listening to these people talk about what has moved them, what has shaped them. I've had ghost stories. Everything, any way that a human creates meaning. Some of them are so beautiful. Oh my God, that I re-listen to them to remind myself that this world is a good place, that whatever is behind the scenes, and this is a very privileged place to be speaking from. I acknowledge that. Even though part of my life has been really horrible and hard and terrible, I'm white. I'm privileged in so many ways. I have enough income to put this out into the world. This world has a good heart at its core, and it wants the best. The fact that really, really horrible things are happening to other people means that we as humans in those spaces and places are not stepping up to give voice to those who are disadvantaged and have no voice. We're not stepping in to feed people. We as humans are what's perpetuating the negative stuff that's happening in this world. I can talk about what's happening in Israel and Palestine. I can talk about what's happening in Ukraine. I can talk about what's happening at the food banks here in Portland, and to Pete's Place, which was the homeless shelter that the city just voted to get rid of, even though we have a terrible problem with homelessness here. It is because other human beings are not stepping up and giving voice to those who don't have voices. And every second of every day, we're given an opportunity to step up for those people that need help. And I think a lot of us are asleep and choosing to ignore those things because life is comfortable, and who doesn't love a comfortable life? But we have to start putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions, because that's what we're here for, is to lift everyone else up.
Nice. I love your mission. I really do. I love that you're trying to put that word out into the universe like that. And I have to stop though for a minute, because you have 200 and, was it 40 something episodes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 240 something episodes. And you said you're not monetized at this point with it. If you don't mind me asking about that, is that by choice, or have you run into obstacles with that?
Gosh. Okay. So part of me hates when I listen to other podcasts, I detest the commercials and the ad breaks. They make me insane. I can't stand them. And so that's a personal thing. Part of me really has an issue with currency and the various things we can use as our currency, like, social currency, who we know currency, actual currency. You know, I don't like the way our society moves and how money is king and money is God. And so part of me feels like I would be selling myself out by monetizing it. I am, my God, I would so love to be making a ton of money on Byte Sized Blessings so that I could actually give it away to the food bank, so that I could give it away to a homeless shelter. I mean, I don't make a lot of money and I'm perfectly happy with what I've got. Now, I wouldn't be lying if I don't fantasize about having a house with a massive library so I could have 1,000 books surrounding me all the time. Or if I could take a 3-month trip around Europe and, I don't know, backpack or stay in hostels, do things on the cheap. But that would be for me to see more beauty, the art and the architecture. So yes, I have those fantasies. I wouldn't be lying if I thought maybe the reason I'm not making money on the podcast is because I have this internal block that says, don't make money. So yes, money is not my end game for a lot of things. If I do make a lot of money at some point, I'm going to mostly just give it away because there are lots of places here in New Mexico that could really do with a dose of money, whether it's for the indigenous pueblos around here or kids who don't get school lunches, that's near and dear to my heart. And also, when people hoard money, I don't think they understand that it's energy and that when you hoard it, it's stuck. So it's not moving. And money, things that you own are meant to, they have an energy of their own and they're meant to be held lightly and released because then that helps the money move through the other people. So yeah, did you see? I actually got triggered by that question.
I apologize. I'm not trying to trigger you at
No,
all.
that's okay.
That's one of those questions that I like to ask, folks is, whether or not they've had a chance to monetize. I honestly, just with what you've told me so far, the reason I asked it and the way I asked it was because the one statement you made was, are you blocking it? Because that's what I thought. And I was like, you know what? It's a tough place to be where your belief is here, but your need is over here. And the first thing I was going to say to you was, I think you're blocking money coming to you, if that's the case. But it's largely a choice, on your end. And so, I mean, power to
Yes.
you if that's your choice. I mean, 100%. And again, I love the fact that you're willing to say, you know what? If I don't want to make
I
money, I'm
would
not gonna.
rather, yeah, I'd rather pay for a kid's,
Rather pay for what? You cut out for just a second.
I'd rather pay for kids. Oh yeah, I was going to say I'd rather pay for kids' school lunches. So I'm trying to find peace with this block inside me.
Got it. Got it. All right. Let me ask you this. What do you do since we're talking about the podcast now? We're into the podcaster side of things. What do you do to promote your podcast?
Okay. So let me also tell you that I have a questionable association with social media. I mean, I look at it as a necessary evil and it's somewhat the bane of my existence. And so there will be weeks where I don't promote anything because I'm like, I don't really care. And I still have the listeners, but I like literally don't care. I have so many other projects going on, like the Peter Rabbit. I mean, I love my podcast. I love my guests. I have at least one, if not two episodes come out every week. It is a huge gift to me. But again, my entire identity isn't tied to the podcast. My entire financial world isn't tied to the podcast. So I have freedom. So I can care or not care about promotion. I'm Yes, can you guess that freedom is very important to me? I also have a lot of
Yeah.
other projects. I'm working on a comic right now. The illustrator in Ireland is just finishing the illustration, and it's going to be a massive project that, my co-creator and I, Stephanie Aaliyah, are hoping gets picked up by Netflix. It's sci-fi. I'm really proud of it. It's incredible. So, the podcast has momentum. Not going to lie, I'd like to be discovered. I'd like to have the whole Cinderella thing. Someone comes and says, "My God, you're talented. My God, where have you been?" But at the same time, I'm like, look, I've got so many other irons in the fire that whether this explodes or not is really indifferent to me. I just know that what I'm doing right now, I just got a message yesterday. Someone just messaged me and said, "This latest episode was unbelievable. It was amazing." So, that's how I'm getting paid back, not financially, not monetarily. I know that I'm making other people's hearts happy, helping them to understand that this world is an enchanted and beautiful place. And for me, that that is what I live for. So the social media, I could take it or leave it.
I love it. All right. Well, now that I have you all riled up, this is the perfect time to ask you my regular corny question that I usually ask. What is it about your podcast and podcasting that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you really hate the most?
Okay, so what I love the most is there's such a capacity to get better at it. There are so many platforms now to facilitate editing or putting it out there, launching the podcast, doing social media. There are like 4 million podcasts in the world. So whenever I feel bad about my listening numbers, which are not bad at all, I think, Kirsten, there's 4 million. And this is how many listens you have with 4 million podcasts. Also, a lot of people quit before they finish 10, and I'm at 247. So I feel pretty good about that. But I want other podcasters to know that just because you started with one formula doesn't mean at episode 100, you're going to have the same formula and it's only going to get better. You're only going to become more proficient at every single piece of it. So don't lose heart. When you listen to episode 1 versus today's or yesterday's episode, the sea change is incredible. So always know that you're going to get better. What I hate most or detest most, or, have an uneasy truth with is the selling of oneself. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of self-promotion. I'm not a fan of selling myself. I think there's a lot that's really self-indulgent in all these influencers and all these people who are trying to make themselves famous or become whatever. I don't care. And it's like all the black holes within everybody of like self-hate and maybe narcissism are on full display in our world, it's so good to know that's out there, because then we kind of know what we're working with in this world, as far as trying to, lift everyone else up. So I do not have a lot of peace with trying to self-promote. One of my guests, it's so funny, he was talking about living in Tulum for a long time and just bumping into people there all the time, white people, by the way, who were like, "Oh, I'm here for this weekend retreat for 3 days to become a shaman. So now I'm a shaman and I can heal you." And I think there's just so much out there that is so ill-deserved and narcissistic, and it's so much entitlement that I am really loath to step into the arena saying, "I have all the answers." My podcast is really just an offering, and I'm like, take it or leave it. I might share some stories about experiences that I've had, or, like I've told the story of being kicked out of the library. You can take my stories or leave them. I will never say that I have all the answers. I will never say I'm a guru. I will never say that I'm the end all and be all, because I know I'm not. And again, I don't know if that comes with maturity or age, but at some point you have to just say, okay, I know nothing. And this is the gift I can give the world. And maybe people will listen and maybe they won't. But yeah, I that's the thing I hate the most about podcasting is people who are putting shows out saying that they have all the answers. And I'm just like, oh dear. I mean, everybody's different. And guess what? Ultimately, we all know nothing.
I, I don't know why I expected anything other than an incredibly colorful and just, energetic, full-bodied answer to that question. That's why I keep asking that goofy little question, because I get awesome answers like the one you just gave me that just make me sit here and smile. I loved it. Absolutely. Totally you. And thank you again for being honest. Appreciate that. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, of course.
As we, kind of wrap this thing up a little bit and bring it to a close. You've done a ton. You've got all kinds of projects. You've done animated series. You've done a podcast. The 240 plus episodes. What is your best piece of advice? And I know you've actually given quite a bit throughout the episode, and I appreciate that. What is your best piece of advice, though, for a podcaster who is out there and is just simply not quite where you are yet?
Oh my God. I'm going to say something that like everybody has probably said, but if you believe in the vision, if you're bringing something that is useful for people or making this world a more beautiful place, keep going. Who cares if no one listens? Like, honestly, because maybe in 2 years you'll get discovered. Maybe in 4 years you'll get discovered. I mean, the other thing to remember is that going forward in your life, people will be able to look at your commitment and your back catalog and say, this is someone who doesn't give up. And, here's a great example. I took a screenwriting course at Second City in Chicago, and it was online. There were 10 people in the class. The class was 12 weeks. By week 4, both times, I was the only person in the class, and I was the only person who finished the class. So I effectively had a one-on-one tutorial with the teacher for about 6 weeks. And I don't know what the statistic is, but most people start and don't finish anything, whether it's writing a book, screenplay, podcast, they don't finish. So my advice is keep going, because you want to be part of the 2%, 3%, 4% who don't give up and can show the world that they can commit and get stuff done. Because we need people in the world like that. Most people are, I shouldn't say this is terrible, but a lot of people are lazy and they love to just let other people do the heavy lifting. And they're so narcissistic, thinking everything's going to come to them. No, we need the people who are out in the world, who are going to, come hell or high water, keep going and making this world a better place by whatever they're creating. So that's my advice.
Wonderful. Absolutely
A little
wonderful
spicy.
advice.
I'm a little spicy.
just a smidge. I love it. That's great advice. I really appreciate that. And Kirsten, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, fighting through a couple of little technical difficulties we've had. You've been an absolute consummate pro through this whole thing, but I think we had a good episode. So, and for sharing everything. I mean, not everybody wants to talk about all that stuff the way you did, and it just makes the next person they're going to have an easier time opening up because they heard you do it. And so, you're leading by example like usual, and I really do appreciate everything you brought to the show today.
Oh my gosh, Rory, it's been so fun. And, I'm a firm believer in being open and being vulnerable, because we don't have to be ashamed of our stories. We don't have to be ashamed of our pasts. And like you said, sharing them helps people understand that what they experienced is not abnormal. It's nothing to be ashamed about, and that they can hopefully alchemize and transmute their stories into things that will help other people, because we need that. So this has been an absolute joy. And I don't even know the technical problems you're talking about. I don't even know what you're talking about. So just to let you know, whatever.
Must have just been on my end. It's all right.
Yes, of
It's all
course.
right.
Of
I love it.
course.
I love it, folks. All right. Author, podcaster, screenwriter, and 50 other things that are all going to be in the show notes. Kirsten Rudberg. Kirsten, thanks so much for being on the show today. You were great.
Oh my gosh, Rory, thank you. Every minute was super fun.
Thank you so much. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Podcaster Nation. This is the podcast that's about podcasters. It's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. Our guest today was a podcaster. You guys cracked our code ahead of time. Folks, this really and truly is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.